In a 1996 interview, the best-selling author and renowned atheist Richard Dawkins boldly declared, "You cannot be both sane and well-educated and disbelieve in evolution." Professor Dawkins would have us think that, quote, "the evidence is so strong that any sane, educated person has got to believe in evolution." And yet, despite such claims, the debate rages on, with more and more reputable scientists questioning evolution every day. Are they all crazy for doubting Darwin? In today's confusing culture, philosophers, theologians, and the average Joe all grapple with the great questions posed by the issue of origins. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Is it more insane to believe we were created by God with a purpose and a plan, or that we're nothing more than a bunch of molecules with a brain? What do you think? Since your answers are so important, you owe it to yourself to carefully consider these questions rather than merely accept what Mr. Dawkins has to say. Do you have to believe in evolution? Are you crazy if you don't? Listen up and then decide for yourself. Evolution is stupid. Sorry, there's just no nice way to put it. The unfounded and unproven theory of molecules to man evolution will be, as well-known journalist Malcolm Muggeridge quipped, one of the great jokes in the history books of the future. Granted, microevolution or variation does happen. There are a variety of dogs, a beautiful array of roses, but the macroevolution suggested by Darwin, with birds and bananas sharing a common ancestor, is completely and utterly without proof. If science is based on observation, then evolution is science falsely so called, because we have never seen one kind of animal evolve into a fundamentally different kind. Genetic limits preclude this. Dogs, coyotes, and wolves might have shared a common ancestor, but they are all the same basic kind of animal, and their offspring remains true to this kind. Still think it's crazy to question monkeys turning into men? Now your skeptical mind might inquire, if all the observable phenomena point a disappointed finger at Darwin, why do so many people believe his theory? Well, that's because they all think someone else has the proof. The physicist, for one, thinks the paleontologist is holding the evidence. The fossil record, of course. But time and study have exposed these so-called missing links to be blatant frauds, like Piltdown Man, the deliberate hoax, or figments of the imagination, like Nebraska Man, reconstructed from the tooth of a pig. Besides, even if you find bones in the dirt, that does not prove anything. In 1974, for instance, Donald Johanson found the famous Lucy fossil by assembling various bones scattered over several miles. This so-called remnant of a peculiar ape constructed by Johanson is not evidence of evolution, but of man's desperate attempt to validate his dumb theory. If evolution were true, there should be a plethora of transitional forms, living and dead, to verify Darwin's claims. But instead, millions of dollars in grant money are spent every year to search for a few bones that will hopefully support an unscientific hypothesis. Okay, maybe the biologist can make Darwin's case. After all, the proof is in the pudding. But as molecular biologists study the cells Darwin supposed were only globs of protoplasm, a wondrous testimony of intelligence has been unlocked in the discovery of marvels like DNA. Within these codes, we find massive amounts of information, the blueprint for life, detailing everything from your hair color, your big toes, and your two front teeth. In fact, if the information in just a spoonful of DNA were written out, the Grand Canyon would be filled with more books than could contain it. Are we to suppose mindless matter and energy not only came into being by chance, but also came equipped with the foresight to organize itself into meaningful and complex systems? Sounds crazy. Michael Behe, in his book Darwin's Black Box, cites the irreducible complexity posed by the biological machines in the cell, a mathematic and scientific impossibility for blind random processes to have formed them. Obviously, this abundance of information logically requires an intelligent source. And who might that be? How about the geologist, the one who actually dates the rocks? Maybe he can resuscitate Darwin. But the geologist doesn't have the ever-elusive proof either, because he's too busy trying to explain the so-called Cambrian explosion, the rapid appearance of fully formed animals in the fossil record. What happened to the slow, gradual descent from a common ancestor postulated by Darwin? What about those trees of life? Maybe they're running through multiple rock layers like the many polystrata fossils running through rock layers all over the world, threatening, if not destroying, uniformitarian interpretation of millions of years in the geologic column. If that were not damaging enough, the dating methods used by these geologists, carbon-14 and other radioisotopes, have come under fierce scrutiny for their gross inaccuracies and evolutionary assumptions. We could go on, but this small sample of who's holding the bag only illustrates that while the smokescreen of evolutionary propaganda does obscure the view of most laymen, those willing to wait till the smoke clears realize that there is no proof for evolution. The only insane hypothesis is to believe something comes from nothing. If there is a building in front of you, you know there was a builder. The building is evidence of his existence. The same is true when you look in the mirror. You are evidence of the Creator. The sheer beauty and elegance of your eyes alone should prove that, with their 137 million light-sensitive cells, each more complicated than a space shuttle, wired in a spot too small for a quarter. The Bible tells us plainly that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. The evolutionist believes in the beginning dirt. Both views are inherently religious, but creation is the theory that ultimately explains the evidence and makes accurate predictions to validate its claims. The creation model, for one, proposes that our universe should be losing energy, winding down, evidence of the second law of thermodynamics, or the principle of entropy. This is exactly what we see in nature. As mutations are increasing, the sun is losing its strength, and society continually slides into war and disarray. Where is the progress evolution promises? The development it assumes? Shouldn't we all be walking on water by now rather than resorting to the selfish and violent tendencies of our supposed animal ancestors? Why in the world would anyone believe such a stupid theory? Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, my friend, and thou shalt be saved. Pick up a King James Bible, and let God be true, but every man a liar.